I've been around and doing it, but now it's my time to shine and start proving it. I'm losing it, I'm moving it. The city is where I'm made, Bostonian flow, I kick it in back there. Yeah, I got game, God in a fan way. We the city of the champs, every sport we play. Spit wetter than the harbor, yeah, I'm flowing like the Charles. I be speeding on this beat, call it Turnpike Miles. Yeah, it's Bugle signing on, John to the Hancock, and I'm always key, I'm ready to unlock. I be doing big things.
Welcome back, everyone, to the newest edition of Once a Week. I'm Billy Gianlutis, and guys, as you can see, we have another great interview in store. If you have not seen him yet, guys, this is Peter Panopoulos, and we had an incredible message probably a couple months ago at this point about what he is doing as a traveling teacher. However, in that conversation, Peter and I really connect when we're discussing key topics. So we decided, let's get together again, and as much as we can dive into what he's doing to help so many students around the country and the world for that matter, let's talk about a topic that helps you directly. So Peter, I thank you so much for being back here, brother. Because
thanks for having me.
When we discuss things, it's a different level.
It does.
So I'm happy to have you again, man. Let's dive into something. And you and I were discussing before we even start recording the topic of passion, and pursuing your passion.
Yes.
So I want that to be the basis of today, because if we can help you pursue your passion, that's another person that's moving forward on what is on their heart to do. But Peter, before we get into that, tell everyone what you've been up to since the last time we saw you.
Yeah, my name is Peter Panopoulos. I own a tutoring company called The Traveling Teacher. We do mostly virtual education for students pursuing their dreams, students in public schools, anybody who is looking for an extra hand in trying to understand the concepts that they have and build their own personal confidence, achieve their academic goals. Before that, I went on a motorcycle journey and made it as far as Nicaragua before 2020. And now I'm back here. And yeah, again, thank you for having me. This is always fun.
Of course, man. And just in your story itself, it is you pursuing your passion, finding yourself, yes, but that led you to your passion. Or would you say it's vice versa? Did your passion lead you around the world?
I think that the passion led me around the world, and it helped me hone into, kind of giving this message that I'm giving now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like your passion leads the way to your purpose.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Phenomenal. So let's kind of dive into this, pursuing your passion. And, we threw some different ideas out there, and what can help someone pursue their passion like you today, like their listener, like a viewer right now, whether that is accountability, or really identifying what holds you back from stepping in your passion, or just figuring out what your passion is.
Yes.
Where do you want to take it and start with?
Honestly, I think trying to figure out where your passion is one of the most important pieces that we can do. Because, a lot of people are very confused as to what is it that I want to do in life, and they could be of any age. They could be a kid, they could be 60 years old, but, it's never too late.
Yep.
I think one of the biggest, most important things here is just keep throwing darts at the dartboard and, trying new things.
Yep.
And it's fascinating that when you try these new things, it actually, by doing all of these things that you just feel or think that you want to do, you really start to guide towards what it is that you're supposed to do.
I agree with that. You have to try new things.
Yeah.
You have to step out. You have to take that leap of faith onto something. And I think that in itself is what holds people back.
Yes.
Not in the sense that fear holds us back, but what is it?
Yes.
What could I try? And I think a lot of people, no matter the age, get stuck in that question period.
Yeah.
Where, all right, well, what could I do? I could do this, I could do that. And then they're just stuck in this zone where they're not actually moving. And I've been there numerous times.
For sure.
Whether it's where my business is now, starting out and trying to get my business off the ground, or just seeing how can I continue to grow.
Yes.
I think in pursuing your passion, that has to be a backdrop of a question.
Yeah.
How can I grow? And am I willing to take the steps necessary? And for a lot of people that listen to Once a Week, or someone that might just find a message, they know instantaneously, because we probably want to say it in every single message we got, there is something inside you that wants to come alive. I think that's a reason for being here. It's your purpose for being here, is to bring that to the world. So only you can answer, what is that for you? But then you have to realize when that answer comes, and it will come to you, it's on you to say, all right, let me figure out, let me research, let me study a little bit to how I can start to make this a reality. So with you pursuing your passions for so long, traveling the world and everything, how did you deal with that question period?
It's interesting, and I'm very happy internally to say that I've done a lot of different jobs. I've done a lot of different things, even aside from the traveling, just doing different jobs.
Yeah.
Pizza place, landscaping, manufacturing, teaching, anything at all. And all of these pieces, it's maybe not necessarily that one job actually led me to something, but it could have been one thing in there that gave me a little spark that was closer to what I wanted to do.
Right.
And that's the same thing with, a lot of the times, we have what we call, the internet gurus or things, people that want to put something out there. But, for me, it's worth listening to because it's another perspective.
Exactly.
And whether, my brother actually has always said it best. But he said that, listen, if you buy it and you get one important piece of information out of it, it's worth every single penny that you spent.
Yeah.
Because, listen, not everybody is going to solve everything that you're looking for. Not one person is going to give you everything.
Right.
But they're going to give you 1 piece, 2 pieces, 10 pieces that you can put together and say, okay, wow, that was actually worth it.
Yeah.
That actually helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
And again, it's just that one spark, and it's that one thing that leads you to the next step.
Right.
And you just got to be willing to push forward more and more.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I love that so much because that, in my eyes, is everything in life. Yeah. Because there's a lesson in every single experience we go through, whether it's an extreme pain that you went through. You didn't go through it for nothing. There was something you had to learn so you can continue to move forward and become who you're meant to be. And just as you're saying right now, in a job perspective, to try new things, to figure out what it could be, as your brother said, take one piece of information. And if you could build on that, you got everything you needed. And I've seen that in my own life, so many areas, whether it's, trying to get speaking and coaching off the ground and whatnot when it's open water.
Yeah.
I don't know how to swim. How can I do this? And then you start to bring in mentors. You start to bring in coaches for yourself. You start to take shots and leaps of faith for that matter. And I've invested money where has the payback all been there, the return on investment for that matter been there? Maybe, but I don't look at it. Right. Because I look at the return on investment, what information did I gain?
Yes.
And as you said, if I gain one thing from the investment that I can use to be another building block on the foundation I'm creating, it's leading me exactly where I'm meant to be.
And we really have to understand, education is never free.
Yep.
Any type of education at all, experiences, emotional, anything at all, it's a tax. There's something that you have to pay, whether it's monetary and you take a loss. I've taken plenty of losses, but you have to understand that, sure, is it a loss? Yes, but it's also a gain, because what did you gain from that? You gained experience.
Yep.
You gained, a lesson. And eventually they lead up to the win.
Yeah.
And the question is, how far are you willing to push it to actually get that win? Because it's not linear by any means, and you know that just as much as I do.
Right.
It is not linear.
Yep.
You have to go with the ups and downs. And honestly, finding your passion and pursuing it is just a microcosm of an example of life.
Yeah.
Right? Everything has an example that you can kind of push towards life in general. And it's just a matter of how far are you willing to push, and yet how far are you willing to surrender to these waves of these ups and downs and figure it out.
Yeah. I love that. And, it's funny. I've been bringing up to a lot of coaching clients recently that are going through struggles and whatnot. And then I keep a log of every single session, every single thing we talk about for that matter. And so they know I keep that log, but they don't keep it themselves.
Yes.
Which is totally fine.
Right.
However, in me looking at the log, I can see when 3 weeks ago they were at the highest of highs. Yeah. And now they're at the lowest of lows. And then I see that 3 weeks later they're at the highest of highs. And it's not to say we follow patterns, which we do in life. However, it's just to reiterate, life in itself is the stock market.
Oh, yeah.
If you look at one scale where it goes up and down, up and down, up and down, up, 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 and then you have areas there, it's a Great Depression, know, and it sinks down, but then it's always rising back up. You have to go with that flow aspect, and I think just that perspective of take what you can out of life, because there's a lesson every single up, there's a lesson every single down, and it's how you're going to utilize, as you said, the education, the information you get out of it. Because if you're going to utilize the education that comes out of it in any experience, that means you learn something on a deeper level. When you can learn something that, is going to take it to another level, that your soul needs for that matter, that you as a human being need for that matter, I always tell everyone, you've probably heard it here once a week if you've checked out our other messages, if you learn the lesson, you pass the test, you level up. So if you level up, life just got a little bit better. Just like a video game. You learn, you get stronger, you continue to grow, but you had to learn. So it's a matter of what steps are you willing to take to learn in life instead of being stagnant. That brings up a question I want to ask you because you're in the education system.
Yeah.
Not just kids, but now I think everyone in general has entered a zone where we don't want to learn. Because everything is now instant gratification.
Definitely.
Right? And that, I'm on Instagram just as much as anyone else. However, if I can go find a minute video that teaches me the keys of something, or now, what is it, ChatGPT, that I don't have to do the actual work anymore, and everything's done for me, am I actually growing? I think that's become such a major hindrance in the world, for society for that matter. But how have you seen that? Because you're directly working with people that might not want to put the effort in because they've seen easier outputs elsewhere.
I think that as humans in general, we try to find the path of least resistance. And at times that's not beneficial in any way because, yes, we eventually want to get to the point where you have these structures in place that you can find the path of lesser resistance, but it's never going to be fully, without resistance. But before you get to that point, you actually have to put the time in. The saying in the past, excuse me, where you have to start mopping the floors.
Yeah, right.
You have to start at the bottom so that you can. It's a simple act of walking around the place that you are walking around, so you can observe other people, the structure as a whole, everything in general, and that's what we do in life as well, right? Is we walk around, we observe, and now with the phones and the social media and everything like that, it's giving us more capabilities. It is a tool to use at times, but it is also something that can be of detriment to success and to growth because it's taking that resistance away. And again, as we talked about last time, like we need that resistance, we need the adversity at some points in our lives to be able to learn something in a different way. Remember, like last time, I mentioned you have to go through the adversity, no matter what it may be, in order for you to actually learn something from it. Because your body at that point has no choice but to, your body, your mind, your soul has no choice but to reprogram in a way that says, I am done with this. I don't want this anymore. And eventually you come to evolve through it. And that's something that is very difficult for people. And honestly, society as a whole today, and it's just something that we really have to come back to.
I agree. I love it. And it's so true. We have to come back to it. And I think helping people get to that point where they want to learn again. I see that in so many coaching clients. I see that in audiences I talk to where, I ask every coach client I have, because I think one thing that you need to do is in life in general is read. And I always say to everyone that, there's the age-old story of if I ask you, what's the wealthiest place in the world?
I'm not too sure.
That's right. No, right? And then most people don't know.
The
wealthiest place in the world is, in fact, the cemetery, because in the cemetery are the leftover dreams that no one invested in. Are the leftover ideas that could have brought riches to the world, to you yourself. So the cemetery has been told as one of the wealthiest places in the world. But I like to tell everyone that the wealthiest place in the world is, in fact, the library. Because for a free library card, you are then able to go get a wealth of knowledge. If you use it, the cemetery is not going to have all the riches there for you because you use it to create the riches in your life. But it's a matter of using it, utilizing the information, going to where the education is, going to learning. I come to so many people, I ask them, like, hey, do you read? Like, no judgment ever, but do you like to read? And 90% of the people that I come across say, no, I haven't read a book in years. No, I haven't read anything. I just scroll. So I have clients that are in colleges, they're in their 20s and whatnot, which is totally, like, I love that age because you're at a moment in your life where you can take everything and move in one direction or the next. And so with working with them, I say, like, hey, are you reading it all? I don't get time for it. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to give you a book. It could be whatever they're interested in. I gave a book on Kevin Garnett to a basketball client that I have. And this kid's like, well, back in the day, I had so many struggles. I couldn't stay focused. The teachers used to tell me I was supposed to be in a different classroom. And so now we have all these limitations on us that are preventing us from, that someone told us that's preventing us from moving forward. So coming into a coaching session doesn't connect all together with our passions. Coming together in a coaching session where you now have someone that believes in you when you can't believe in yourself. It allows you to absorb that because you're learning, wow, someone believes in me. You learn the education from that moment. You learn the information that says, if someone believes in me, maybe I can believe in myself. And then when you start to believe in yourself, you start to realize all the things that someone told you couldn't do in the past, you're now able to do more empowered. You're able to do at your best strength. You're able to do in all these incredible ways. So that limiting belief that was back here that someone put on you from a young age has faded away, right? And so connecting it, before I pass it off to you right now, connecting it back to the passion aspect, that allows someone to realize, oh my goodness, I can pursue my passion.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off. I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, I think that, one of the important things with what you do, Billy, is again, you help people feel heard. Mm-hmm. You help them observe parts of themselves that they may not have understood. Hey, that's a limiting belief that you have had. Mm-hmm. And you point it out to them and you give them that power to say, you know what, it is. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I want to do about it. And you help them figure out what it is that they can do, actionable steps mm-hmm. to really push that forward and say, that is something that has held you back, but no longer needs to. Mm. And it is a choice of yours, yep. whether it's going to hold you back at this point or not, because you're actually aware of it. Yep. And you have the power now to do something about it. Mm. And through that power, you have the effort. And kind of going back to reading, mm-hmm. I was never a big reader growing up. Mm-hmm. And I really got into it after college. And it was hard to kind of get into it because, again, it's hard to stay focused for that long. I mean, in society today, we have the scrolling, and even for myself, it can be difficult, and it's a practice to come back towards. Mm. And so the reading aspect, once you get past that, and even if you read 5 pages a day, you're growing. Exactly. And it's so interesting to feel the difference between when you're watching TV or scrolling or something where all the information is just given to you in the way in which they want you to see it, versus opening a book, any kind of book at all. You are imagining these things within yourself. Exactly. There isn't a video in front of you saying, oh, there's a palm tree and sand and this and that. No, you're creating it for yourself. Yeah. It's adding to your creativity. Yep. And you are growing because of that. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's exactly it right there. Trying to help people realize, imagination itself is used as a kid terminology. But if you lose your ability to imagine it could be anything, you've lost a part of yourself. So as you said, when you pick a book up, it's a whole new world. When you pick a book up and you don't have the imagery of the Palm Beach, as you said, the palm trees on the beach and everything, as you said, and it's just you creating the vision in your mind, taking someone else's experience from a book, taking a how-to aspect from a book and utilizing it in your own way, as you said, helps you grow. Yeah. That in itself is a step on the journey we all have to understand. I think this is kind of tough to say, but I think now more than ever, people aren't willing to take steps on the journey because, one, they're not willing to do the work, but they haven't been prepped to learn how to do the work. Correct. We've thrown out the window. Yeah. I think it's more so because we live in an age now where everything's given. Yes. It's not so much you have to put the work in. And that's why we look at entrepreneurs. I can look at you, I can look at your brother and see these people that have truly elevated themselves in such a way because they realize, I have to work to get this. Definitely. And yes, there is instant gratification in life in some areas. However, you learn so much more about life. You learn so much more about yourself when you say, you know what, I'm going to go for it. That's something I had a client the other day, first session, everything. The kid's got so much intelligence, so knowledgeable. However, he's lacked confidence. Yeah. So he tells me, well, I feel like I'm just up for a challenge. I'm like, all right, well, what's the challenge? What do you ever want to do in your life? Yeah. And it's as if no one ever asked him that. And so I'm sitting there talking to him in a session, and he goes, well, I've always felt like I could join the military. I was like, oh, that's phenomenal. He's in incredible science classes in college and everything like this. I'm like, what would you do? He goes, well, it's kind of why I'm doing this in college is a means to an end. Wow. So now I'm putting the pieces together. I'm like, all right, you've already planned this out. You just haven't seen it yet. Yeah. And so I'm helping him see that if you want a challenge in life and you feel that you don't have the confidence to pursue that challenge, but now he wants to fly planes and everything like that. He wants to be in aviation, all this kind of stuff, create all these aspects. He's genius. And I'm sitting there telling him,
if there's a part of you that says you're up for a challenge, we just got to put the pieces together and learn.
Totally.
How do you put the pieces together?
Yeah.
One step after the other.
Yeah.
Learning, growing, understanding. There's more to you. And because we all are on this perspective when we're looking externally,
yes,
as we said earlier, you started on external versus internal. When we look at the external, we miss out on what the internal is trying to tell us.
Yes.
When we look at the internal, we realize there's so much more knowledge there that we can utilize to then create the reality of the external that we're searching for.
Definitely.
It's powerful. You know, I'll pass back to you.
And, you know, it's something that I think, you know, speaking of the external, we always, you know, again, we are communal beings. We always try to bounce things off of the people around us. Yep. But the problem is that, unfortunately, the majority of people had bounced their passions off of people in the past, and it was something that was kind of shut down, or was given a limiting belief, yep. or, you know, anything at all. And, you know, you mentioned the imagination as part of a child, and I totally agree. I think one of the important pieces of a well-balanced life is to always listen to that child, because that child is always there.
Yep.
It's funny, you know, you talk to older people, and a lot of older people have told me, I still feel like I'm 18 years old. Even though I'm 60, 65, 70, 80, I still feel that, you know, and I think that points to the soul.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, the body gets older, weaker, the soul always remains as powerful as it always was.
Yep.
And that child aspect, that imagination, you have to be able to imagine something in order for it to come true. And honestly, like from a physics perspective, anything that can be imagined has either happened or will be able to happen in the future. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so because you've bounced it off of the people around you, and it was kind of given a limiting belief, or they didn't really believe in it, or something like that, you know, that kind of keeps people down, and that's the external aspect of it.
Yeah.
But I would say the internal aspect of this whole idea is to always understand that the people around you are trying to help you, and for the most part, they care about you.
Yeah.
But you also have to take their information with a grain of salt, 100%. Because that's for them.
Yeah.
This may not be for you.
Exactly.
And yes, absolutely. Are people older? Do they have some more experiences? For the most part, yes. But you have to take your life into your own hands and say, yeah, sure, I'm sure you did this and it turned out this way.
Yeah.
Does it turn out that way for everyone? No.
Right.
So I have to go out and try this out and do it and feel it and experience it and learn from it and fail from it and all of these things that are going to bring me towards that piece of my passion again.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. And, you know, I want to emphasize one key point you said, as much as all of it's so incredible, is that you have to take people's perspectives with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And to give people background, when I started doing not just YouTube, but coaching, speaking, really saying, like, this is what I'm going to do, the amount of people that laughed in my face, like, it's one of those age-old stories. People laugh in someone's face, and then it ignites them to keep going for it. But it wasn't me pursuing my passion at that point because I was trying to prove to them I'm going to do it.
Right.
It was just in my heart, my truth, my heart of hearts. I knew this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to stop until it gets done. And I tell people, oh yeah, I know, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I do this, you can find me on YouTube, all this kind of stuff. And just to look in these older people, they would like, huh, okay. And then I really started to grasp it. The people that didn't believe in me, I could count the people that believed in me on one hand when I started doing all this.
Yes.
And not all of that is family members.
Right.
There's a lot of family members that when I started doing this, they were like,
yes.
I don't know if you should take this risk.
Right.
And I just knew I was meant to do it. So I started pursuing it. And then when they started doubting me, I had to look at it from the perspective that I tell you guys this right now. No one can see your goal, no one can see your dream other than you. Of course they're going to say you can't do it, because in reality they can't do it because it's not theirs. It wasn't given to them. It was given to you. It was put in your heart. It was your truth for a reason, so you could bring it into life. So you could bring it into reality. You can create it, manifest it, elevate yourself to a level where it is the reality that you live. Of course they can't do it. Of course they're going to doubt you. Of course the negativity will come because they can't see it for themselves. But they weren't supposed to. You were supposed to see it for yourself. You were supposed to believe in yourself in such a way to realize, oh my goodness, this is mine. This is my dream. This is my destiny. This is my goal. And I'm going to make it happen. When you start to pursue that, you realize People can say what they say.
Yes.
People are going to throw it, I think the scriptures tell you, like, people are going to shoot their arrows.
Yeah.
Flaming arrows at you, and you have to block it with, the scriptures say you got to block with your shield. But when you realize you pursuing your passion strengthens you, no matter what they say, it doesn't knock you down a peg anymore.
Absolutely.
It just adds more fuel to the fire. It's like, all right, keep talking.
And I think one of the important things that you mentioned is that it has to come from inside. Somebody else is going to externally say, no, you shouldn't do this. Maybe you shouldn't take this risk. And you're not saying, oh, I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to prove it to myself.
Exactly.
And in turn, you'll see the results. Yeah. But that's one of the most important things is the internal, the self, that a lot of people, put to the wayside because they feel as though there's more power externally than there is internally. And it's impossible for that to be the case. It is something that keeps a lot of people down. And it's something that, once you realize once you become more self-aware every day, and realize the power that I hold inside of me is the power that everybody else holds inside of them, and yet they aren't able to access it, which is why they're being negative about these dreams. And again, people want something to fall back on. People want an insurance policy, and that's okay. And you can set it up, like you said, with one of your new clients, the one that wants to go into the aviation and join the military. He's setting things up. He's making that stepping stone. He'll have something that he can fall back onto, and yet he is pushing forward towards something that he truly feels is the thing that he should be doing.
Yeah.
And who knows? At some point things pivot here and there, and maybe it's not. For example, maybe it's not the military, and maybe it's something private. Maybe it's either way is fine.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it's the matter of, again, following that path, keeping your self-awareness and your self-respect and your self-value there so that you can actually, continue on that path no matter what anybody says.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. And the internal in that aspect is you got to listen to yourself. Internally, as he said, is so much more powerful than the external because everything started in the internal. Every single thing, this table, the shirt he's wearing, the mics we're wearing, the computer right here, the TV right there, that was an idea. So it started out internally in someone's head, and then they decided, let me create it. And then people probably became a billionaire off of that. But if you sit there and you're like, wait a second, I have ideas, I have thoughts, let me try and bring them into reality. That's you taking the internal and making external. And to kind of add on to everything you just said in the deeper aspect, there's a lot of different areas that we kind of thrown to the wayside, and they all are meant to help us pursue our passion.
Yeah.
And and you can look them up. They're called higher faculties and everything. But the willpower you have, the ability to stick to your discipline and see something through the finish, the trust that you have. There's more than that, but I just want to emphasize that if you have the willpower to stick on the path you're on, stick on the path that you're meant to be on, to pursue your passion, your journey, everything like that, no matter where it is, start to finish, no matter how slow it gets, no matter how fast it gets at times, you're on the right path. But it's your willpower and your discipline to be able to say, I'm going to do this, and no matter what the external is trying to tell me and all the words that everyone else is throwing in front of me, I know internally I'm meant to see this through to the finish. That's you sticking to your will. That's you sticking and trusting the process, being disciplined in your pursuit that this is going to come alive. And I think the more we teach people that concept, they realize you have so many skill sets that we don't use anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself, and a factor in the universe we live in is cause and effect.
Yes.
Everything we've said is cause and effect, where if someone takes a step, that's the cause. The effect will come.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of it. That's anything in life, good or bad.
Yes. Absolutely. And sometimes taking that step will lead to something, perceived as bad or something dangerous or something like that. And yet it is, again, leading you, pushing you towards the ultimate thing.
Yeah.
And, I have these conversations with my brother a lot as well. And he's very intelligent when it comes to a lot of the steps that need to be taken that people are not willing to take. And, the one of them is realistically, whenever you try something new, you have to be willing to sacrifice and spend 3 to 5 years before you maybe even start seeing anything at all.
Yeah.
And that's something, the discipline part that you were talking about before,
Yep.
that is so important. And again, we can distract ourselves very easily. We can, we can discourage ourselves very easily. And it's something that you just have to understand. If this is something you feel deep down inside of you, that is where you're supposed to be heading, then you really need to make the sacrifices. You need to create a structure for your life that will help you continue on with that discipline, going to the gym, eating properly, sleeping well, keeping a routine of some sort, so that because when those things are all settled, people say make your bed every day. Sure, make your bed every day. Make this a routine. Make things routine, so that those are all done. They're scheduled out and ready to go, and then you can really push forward into the things that you have to do.
Right? Oh, no, it's so true. And as you said, the routines, the habits, the behaviors that we follow on a daily basis, that's been thrown to the wayside in so many ways. But if you create a daily routine, a daily habit, if your behaviors follow towards the goal that you want for yourself, just a better life for yourself, whatever it looks like for you, you will get there, because naturally your time is now set in areas where it can only build you up. That's the purpose of, as you said, making something as simple as making your bed. Yeah. This is an entire, I think it was a Navy SEAL, wrote the entire book, Make Your Bed. Yeah. And it's literally it's a powerful book, because starting your day organized is powerful. But that in itself, something as simple as making your bed, all right, that's a win. All right, what's the next part of my routine, the next part of my habit, the next behavior I do? That's another win. So like in the mornings, I wake up, brush my teeth and everything, make my bed, and then I go to the gym. That's a win, that's a win, that's a win. Yeah. And I think if more people really realize, when you dedicate your time, it doesn't have to be your entire 24-hour day, but when you dedicate your time more so to what you want to do and what you feel you're called to do and everything, even as you said with reading, like I tell everyone, set a time for 10 minutes. Yes. I don't care if you get distracted in that 10 minutes, but I don't care if you read one page. Yes. And a lot of people say, oh, I can't read anymore. It's just too much. Right. Right? But we're able to scroll for hours on end. Yeah. But to put the phone down and really read for 10 minutes and then go back to scrolling, reward yourself. But then you start to realize, wait a second, why not do 15? Why not do 20? Wait a second, I really like this book. I'm not even going to time myself anymore. That's you creating a new habit, new routine, new behavior to throw out the old and start new on something that builds you up. And that's just all simple areas like making your bed, reading, brushing your teeth, going to the gym. But to me, those are all victories. And I think if more people started to take a step back in their life and realize, I win a lot more than I lose. And if your perspective on winning is more so what you're doing for yourself, all right, well, you're a victor, and you start to realize, oh my goodness, there's a lot more to my life. And connecting to the external, the internal, if we all have an external perspective on what life is supposed to be, and we're looking at these celebrities and we're looking at these athletes and we're looking at these entrepreneurs and whoever they are and what they're living now. Yes. A lot of time it depresses the person looking at it because they don't have it now.
And looking at them, the majority of those people, I would say, because I don't really follow sports much, I don't follow other people much. The one thing that is so important to me with people who have made it to those levels is the sacrifices that they made, is the accountability that they held towards themselves. You hear stories of actors and actresses sleeping on floors, sleeping on couches, being extremely impoverished, but willing to do that so that they can get to where they are now. And I think that's something that people look up to when they look at these people, and yet they don't see the all of the other things. They're like, wow, they're there, I want to be there. And and sure, they may ask themselves, how do I get there? But and that's another thing with reading or anything like that. Reading biographies, that was one of the big things that I really started getting into when I first started reading was biographies. How, Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, many other people who Einstein, people who made a significant impact, and yet when you read their stories, you see that the trenches that they went through, the deep, heavy, hard, difficult, adverse things that they experienced to actually get to that level. Yeah. And you see that and you're like, okay, no, this is actually possible. It's hard. Look at all these people who did these things and failed and all of this, but they made it. Yeah. And one of the books, I actually haven't read it yet, but it was suggested to me, and I believe it's called Autobiography of a Pencil. Okay. And that's kind of a funny title, but if you think about it, think of how many people and how many things need to be put in place for one pencil to actually be made. From the lumber all the way to the end product, and the packaging and the advertising and the manufacturing and all of these things. And if you look at that, and you say, okay, well, it starts as this raw material and ends up going through all these processes to actually get to that final point. You can look at yourself in the same exact way.
Yeah.
And you can say, okay, well, this is a raw idea, a raw passion, a raw heartfelt thing that I want to accomplish. And, you know, all of this, these manufacturings, these things in the middle are the things that I have to really focus on, be disciplined about, and continue on in a routine in order to be actually be able to succeed to the final product that I want to have in front of me. You know?
That's awesome. That connects to a point that we want to bring up too, with like the journey itself, pursuing your passion as you connect it to the pencil and all the processes it has to go through. Start to finish looks different for everyone.
Absolutely.
You know, and just as you said with the pencil, it has to get refined and everything like that. The sacrifices you make along the way to your passion, it's going to look different for you than it looks for Peter, for me, for anyone that you come across, because your story is different. Connected to the pencil, how you write that story is really how it comes alive. No matter how fast life moves for you, no matter how slow life moves for you, start to finish, you're going to get there, because that's your journey. You know, I think that's something a lot of people give up on their passion because things might get slow.
Yeah.
They might get distracted along the way. I've had so many people come to me because they want to pick up old dreams that they put away when they were kids.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes,
you know, my first
amazing.
client ever didn't like, she always used the, you know, shout out to Cindy, she's phenomenal. You know, she was, you know, in her 50s at the time, everything like that. And she said, you know, I just know there's some more in me. And I said, all right, well, what is that? And she always used the expression, the kitchen is aspect, it's a bun in the oven.
Yeah.
Or a baby aspect, bun in the oven aspect. There's something in me that needs to, it's not done yet, it has to come out. And so I'd say like, all right, well, what is that? And we kept, you know, going around that in sessions. And she eventually said, well, I've always, you know, when I was a little girl, I always wanted to do was sing. And I was like, well, let's do it. And it's funny, her husband himself is a pianist. And so I'm like, all right, well, you have all the material here. Let's do something with it. And so she, you know, she was also, you know, a part-time actress or whatever, just in herself with, you know, plays and everything like this. And she started to put the pieces in place, and session after session, she'd have a song done. And then she, by the end of the entire process, she was recording her own CD and songs with her husband.
Unbelievable.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yes, it's bringing it to the intern, bringing it to the forefront. This is what's in me. What was left there that I still have to pursue? If you feel that there's something left on your heart to bring to the world, no matter your age, it's still on you to bring to the world. It's just a matter of will you put the effort in. No matter how slow time can get, no matter how fast time can get, your start to finish, the finish looks absolutely incredible if you put the time in.
And don't forget, and don't fear to show that part of yourself. I think so many people fear to show their dreams, to express their dreams to people, and you know what, rightfully so, because there can be a lot of limiting beliefs that get put onto that dream. And so, you know, if you have something that if you have something that you want to get done, you know, I would say in the very beginning pieces, don't spread it as far as possible. You know, really in the beginning, just hone it in on yourself, try to come up with a plan, and try to execute that plan and see how those executions can go on your own. And then, you know, if you choose to start sharing it with people, go ahead. But I think, you know, especially in society today, you know, there are so many people who hold that passion, that singing inside of them, and they wait, you know, a lot longer than, you know, they would have wanted to potentially, to be able to actually do that. And, you know, and I think one of the big reasons is the fear of what other people are going to say.
Yep, I agree to that. And that connects to what we started on too, where if there are going to be external judgments, which there will, no matter what there will be. However, that fear that holds you back, like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think about me? What do you think about you? What do you think about you if you give up on this? Are you going to be able to live with yourself? Are you going to be able to peacefully sit? And not too many people can, because if you don't pursue what's on your heart to do because you're afraid of what other people think, later in life, it's going to be like an itch that you can't scratch.
Yeah.
It's always there.
Definitely.
And I've had clients come to me and say, well, I don't know, no one believed in me, so I didn't go for it. And then they step in a session, I'm like, well, you're going to go for it now because it's obvious that that's what the area you have to go and do. And then they start to take steps when they feel more alive.
Yes.
They stop caring what other people think because they feel alive. They think highly of themselves in those moments than they do of other people. If you're going to take other people's impressions of you and weigh them a lot heavier than your own impression of yourself, what are you doing? And that's something I had to come to terms with that.
Yes.
You had to come to terms with that.
For sure.
Anyone that takes a step onto anything that's put on their heart to do will, in fact, come to terms on that, because it's not the norm to follow your passion. The norm with the 7.8, almost probably at this point, 8 billion people in the world, the norm is don't follow what's on your heart to do. Just go with the flow.
Yeah.
What's everyone else? And you in the actual school system is not what you do. You actually get to work more with students and whatnot and truly believe in them.
That's what's so amazing with what I'm working on right now, and kind of the way that it's starting to pivot is with students who are on national sports teams who have made more sacrifices, don't have a schedule that allows them to join into a normal setting of education.
Yeah.
And so, now one of the cool things that's popping up is these online schools.
Yep.
And, the kids are able to, it's completely asynchronous, or it can be, so that the students have the curriculum that they need to get done, but they can finish it when they can. And there's obviously target due dates and all of that stuff. And, one of the big platforms that I'm actually partnered with is called Laurel Springs School.
Okay.
And, that school is, it's a California accredited online school. You can do synchronous or asynchronous lessons, but all the curriculum is there. The visual portion of that is unbelievable. They've done a really good job of honing in on how to present this in an asynchronous way. And one of the things that my company does, and I do, as a partner to Laurel Springs, is help them with the one-on-one organization, structure, tutoring, anything that they need to kind of keep that there. Because listen, doing online school is you have to be a self-starter. Yep. You have to at least build that. You have to, you don't have somebody telling you, hey, this is due, you got to get it done. There's a long to-do list and you got to chip away at it.
Yeah.
And, that's where we come in as a traveling teacher and say, here's the to-do list, but let's actually work through these. Let's work through these. Let's preview them. Let's see what you can do. But, kind of pointing back to what I was talking about before is the passion that these students have with these sports teams or gymnastics or ballet or anything that they're doing in their lives. And, they're doing these online schools. It's giving kids an opportunity to pursue these things.
Yep.
And, listen, the education system right now is going under a lot of changes.
Yep.
I think every aspect of life right now is going through a pretty massive awakening, a pretty massive change in the way things are going to be going.
Yep.
And, it's very interesting to be a part of the way the education is changing in the beginning, on the ground level, and seeing how quickly things are evolving, and how everybody is going to have to adapt to those evolutions. And, it's, again, like with these students, with these sports kids, it's so cool to see they're bleeding their passions, they're glowing their passions, and they're given this opportunity to do so. And it's unbelievable. It's very difficult for them, and I give them all the props in the world, because they are doing something that the majority of people only wish they would do. And yet they're pushing hard. They've always made sacrifices, even from a very young age, to actually accomplish these things. And they're doing it. And it's it is something that, is a real dream come true for me. And, instead of students, I like to call them dream chasers, because they're chasing their dreams, and I'm there to help them. And that's a dream come true for me.
That's awesome.
And I know it's a dream come true for you too, Billy, because you have these clients and these people, and anybody who watches these once a weeks, who literally just, go and tell you these things. You are helping them because you want to help them succeed. And it's that candle light that keeps getting passed on and on and on and on. And it's something that everybody, it's contagious.
Yeah.
It's contagious.
Right. I love everything that you're doing. I appreciate you saying that about me. And I think that's beautiful, in the sense that you have a gift that I have just as much. And it's funny, I was driving out here to do this, and for some reason this was in my head, not in the sense that I bring it up in a video, but it connects to this wholeheartedly. When I'm working with someone, and I'm assuming it's the same thing with you when you're working with a student, it could be anyone for that matter, you see them as their true self.
Yes.
You believe in them.
Yes.
You see this person has full capabilities to do whatever is on their heart to do,
yes.
to pass the class, to pass the test, whatever it is. When I'm working with a coach or client, it is the same thing. I see their true self. The hindrance that is now in the world, individually, we don't see ourselves as our true self.
Correct.
We see ourselves through the lens of limitation.
Yes.
But when we're looking to someone external, this is where the passing of the candle, as you just said, the passing of the spark for that matter. When you're able to see someone with no limitation, with full-on belief that they're able to do or bring into the world what they're meant to do or achieve whatever they're meant to achieve, you inspire them in spirit, inspire them to take the next step for themselves. And they can do the same for someone else.
Yeah.
And that's all building confidence. But no matter if it's the classroom, the athletic aspect, the coaching aspect, the speaking aspect, whatever it is, it could just be you watching this video right now. For people to truly grasp that they can do something and bring it to the world and start to believe that for themselves, I wholeheartedly will say that is the foundational point of anything. As we started on, we mentioned building blocks.
Yeah.
You know, to start to build this foundation of pursuing your passion. To take those steps, to learn the lessons, yes, those are building blocks, but it can only happen if you have the confidence and belief in yourself to say, I can. Confidence and belief in yourself to say, I am. Whatever you put after that statement becomes a reality. So if you start to say, I am me, I could say something like, I am the greatest speaker in the world. And then I start to follow that path, wherever that leads. It has to come into reality because I'm taking the steps necessary. The same goes for you. Whatever comes after that statement, you could say, I'm a loving person. Life will then start to show you how you're a loving person. And then if you follow it, life will bring in more experiences to prove it to you.
It'll also show you the parts of you that may not be loving, right? And because everybody has that, and there has to be a balance. And you see these pieces of you because you become more self-aware. You are on this path to saying that I want to be a more loving person. And so you have to shed the pieces that are kind of holding you back from that. And so you see both. You see the yin and the yang. And the question is, are you willing to do those actionable steps to actually be able to shed those other pieces to the degree that you can, right? Nobody can be perfect. And yet, you can do your best to shed those old pieces and rewire yourself to be a more loving person, to be a more social person, to be a more successful person, and whatever success means for you.
Right.
And kind of what you were talking about before, where you show people these actionable steps and they actually do it and they're happier and they're doing it. I'm going to talk about the opposite as well, because since I've started, I have other manufacturing businesses as well, but since I've started this journey, since my motorcycle trip, a lot of people come to me with all these ideas, and I'm so happy about it that they do, because it's so cool to see, like, hey, there is a passion here. There is a spark that somebody's trying to share with me to kind of bounce it off of. And, I am equally as passionate towards them pursuing it because that's what brings me joy.
100%.
To see that, to spread the candlelight, to spread the spark. And, what happens is, I have a lot of people who've come up and said, hey, I want to do this. And I'm like, awesome. You got a minute? Grab my laptop, say, these are just things that I know and have worked for me. Let me share them with you.
Right.
You can go through all these pieces because there's a lot of different parts when you want to start something like this. And they ask all these amazing questions and they're writing things down and they get super pumped up. And by the end of the conversation, they're glowing.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, sometimes they stop.
Yeah. Right.
And the fire goes out.
Right.
And for whatever reason, whatever it may have been, whether it's the lack of self-confidence, whether it's something external, whatever the case may have been, and what I've noticed is that a lot of people actually don't feel like talking to you at that point, and I'm okay with that. Because how many times it's happened, and you see that you showed them the light, you showed them a piece of light, a piece of themselves that they can do actionable steps towards. And they're making the decision not to. And it really, instead of those actionable decisions that you were talking about that really started helping people be happier and glow and this and that, it actually kind of dips them down a little bit. And yet, everybody, this is so important. You can see the ups and the downs that people go through, and you can crash. I have doubts about myself all the time.
Right.
All the time. But you got to work through it so that you can rise up again. And if there are all those times, we talked about this last podcast where things continue to break until they come down to this piece, this moment where you want to change something about it. And these ones that I'm talking about right now are a part of that.
Yeah.
I don't say that they are not part of the journey. I don't say, oh well, that person didn't do it, so whatever, because I feel and always hope that they are going to eventually.
Yeah.
Whether it's that moment, whether it's 10, 20 years from that moment, It doesn't matter. They found something that they want to do. Now the question is, are you going to create the structures for yourself to actually pursue it or not?
Yeah.
And that's it.
And that's a very important point that Peter just emphasized, where, to create the structures, to put everything in place, to help you build up the ladder, and then to have a moment where it kind of hits you where you might not want to put the effort in. You might struggle at first, which is completely normal with learning anything new. And what I try to add to this is, if we know that's life, if you build the structures in place, if we know that's the routines and the habits you're trying to build, it is not easy making a change for yourself, because you have been wired a certain way to do life a certain way.
Yes.
And that might be your doing, it might not be your doing, it could be your parents doing, it could be your school doing, it could be your church doing, whatever it is. The environment you grew up with started to build how you live your life and your routine. To change from that is, in fact, painful.
Yes.
Because you're creating a new way of living. To then step forward in that, and then you might hit a wall, as you said, 20, 30 years, 40 years down the line, then you pick it up again. Phenomenal.
Yes.
I wouldn't doubt anyone in that sense, because it's on your heart to do.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's incredible when friends come to me like, oh, I think I do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, like me, like, let's freaking go, man. Like, let's make it happen.
Yes.
And I get lit up knowing someone's lit up about what they want to do. And then I check in with them months later and everything like that, and nothing's moved. I'm still going to be lit up, just the fact that they had the idea. It's on them to bring it to reality. That's why I love coaching so much, because it's just like you. When people bring you, this is what they want to bring to the world. And as you said, you talk to them, you might only have a moment to talk to them, and you fill them with so much light, and then you realize they didn't take the light, it just kind of dimmed.
Yeah.
It's still there, just a little dim.
Right.
With coaching, and I'm meeting with people week after week for however long they choose to, it's like, did you do anything? Like, Bill's going to ask you, did you do anything?
Right.
And there's a lot of people, I know we're going to talk about next week, I have to do this.
Yeah.
So they stay on top of themselves, and that creates progress to build on. For some people, like younger clients that come to me, they don't necessarily have the full drive at times to follow through on it. They may be dealing with their own struggles just as much. So yes, we address the struggle, but sometimes it's like dragging them back to their goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, and I will say this, and we'll start to close this out. In life, no matter what you're pursuing your passion on, your journey on, if you can create the habits and routines, as Peter said, and create the structure in place, as we said earlier, you're going to make your way up the ladder. If you're someone that is fighting the negativity in yourself, but from other people, the perceptions, you're letting that get to you, and you're hitting this wall for wall, yes, it will come alive at some point down the line when you choose to get up. If you choose to get up now, and you choose to face it now, you put it in the ground. I think a lot of people nowadays are trained to numb the feeling, to distract themselves. And that could be social media, that could be drinking, that could be drugs, that could be going out constantly all the time. Yes, it's fun to do at times. However, if you do it consistently and that's your routine, all you're telling me is that you're running from what's on your heart to do, that you could bring to the world, but you're afraid of putting in effort. Okay, if that's the problem that we need to address, the answer is, in fact, I have to start putting in the effort. That could just be a baby step. That doesn't have to be, I have to do all this now. I think that's something people need to realize is, if you choose not to numb yourself, if you choose to face this down, I'm going to make this happen. It is not all now. It is baby steps, as we started this entire podcast on. It is baby steps to pursue your passion.
Yeah. And
the baby steps, I said this to a guy in the old gym before I met you, and this guy's in his 60s, and he found out I do this stuff. It was really when I got started speaking and everything like that. And he came to one of my first shows and everything like this, and he loved it. You could tell, like, it was the first one. It was like it needed to get crafted, but I took the step to do it.
Yeah.
So we're in the gym, we're talking about this thing. And he goes, Bill, you did all this great and everything. And I looked at him, I go, yeah, it was a baby step. He goes, that's right, it was a baby step. And I looked him dead in his eyes, and I go, yeah, but It's the baby steps in life that when you get down the line, you realize were the biggest leaps you ever took in your life.
Absolutely.
And he says, this guy's in his 60s. He's got the gray, he's got the wisdom, you can tell. And he sits back and goes, that was awesome.
Yeah.
But like, it just comes off the tongue. But to say it to you now, take the baby steps to your passion and then get somewhere and then get somewhere and then get somewhere. And then when you look back, it was that baby step you took in yourself and the step you took physically in the external that are the biggest leap of faith you could have ever done. And that's what inspires you.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of go into the numbness portion of it. It's like, I would say, you can't say stop numbing yourself, just numb yourself less every day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I get that.
And it's something that is one of those steps, one of those baby steps that have to get done.
Right.
And you know, it's something that also burns people out is the fact that they're like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And they start from 0 and they just plan it out to 100.
Yeah.
And that can be, you know, something that burns you out. You have to take the slow steps and understand that even within education and within anything in life, those baby steps that you're talking about are so important. You have to allow them to be baby steps so that you can actually grow with them. You can't try to just throw everything aside and go do it 100% right off the bat. Take it slow. Those baby steps that you're talking about, you know, build those blocks, hold yourself accountable for the things that you want to do for yourself. And, you know, eventually, you know, and I'm sure for you as well, I look back before my trip, you know, 5 years ago, and I look back now, and sometimes when I'm kind of down on myself, I look back and I'm like, look at how far you've come.
Yeah.
And how, you know, 5 years ago, if you were to tell yourself this, or 10 years ago, if you were to tell yourself this, you'd have been like, there's no possible way. This is impossible to happen. And yet look at it, it did.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you say the same thing about yourself. And not that we're at the point that we ever want to be. And it's always in pursuit of that. I don't know if we can ever say that we've reached it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Not us, everybody in general. You are pursuing your passions and they become a reality. And those passions continuously change and alter, and you are becoming your true self in any way that you possibly can. Yeah. And you know, it's just take time, write down where you were, where you want to go, things you want to do in your life. Write these things down. I will say that some of the most important things in life are, you know, written and spoken. You have to, because you're actually putting them into the world, that pencil. You're writing them into the world, like you said. You know, you have to do that because then you can look back. If you hold a journal, you can look back 5 years from now and say, wow, that's what I was thinking back then. Yeah. And look at where I'm thinking now, or look at what I'm doing now. It's these baby steps you're talking about that are just so incredibly important, and the community surrounding that. This is another thing that is very, very important with something like this. You cannot be afraid to lose people or things in your life. You have to, like I mentioned in the last podcast, you have to understand that as you take this leap forward, things are never going to be the same again. And you have to accept that, and you have to allow the new to form. A lot of people have self-limiting beliefs that do not allow them to succeed in the way that they want to. And when that success starts to come, they kind of pull the parachute and they say, oh, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel right, because they're not used to it. And again, that's another piece of the puzzle that you have to kind of get through. But seriously, don't be afraid to lose people, to lose objects, things, anything at all that you notice is no longer aligning with you. You have to go on this path, and you have to make sacrifices, and when you let certain things go, it allows this blank space for new things to come in. And that is such a beautiful thing, but it's very hard to do.
Yeah. No, I'll reiterate that before we officially close this off, because for people to grasp that in the self-improvement process, or I like to call it the elevation process, because what you're doing is you're elevating yourself. On a deeper level, you're elevating your consciousness. You're seeing life from a higher level, higher perspective. In that self-improvement process, as Peter just said, as you grow, the things that were holding you down start to fade away. And you have to be able to let that go. That could be friends. That could be habits that you had. That could be where you live. That could be family, for that matter. And the more you allow life to bring you to where you want it, to where what's on your heart to bring to the world has an opportunity to come alive because you're finally in the right soil, can grow now. The things had to fade away. And that in itself is the beauty of pain. Because pain does not come to harm you. Pain comes to help you no matter what it looks like. But you have to be willing to let it go so you can grow, if we want to rhyme it all together. But if you sit there, and pain only comes to help you move forward. And it's something that used to happen to me. This is back in the day. I went through very, very tough moment in my life. I was very depressed, very anxious with what was going on in my life. And I was in a community, we'll say this without going too deep into the story.
Yeah.
I was in a community where I thought the basis was meant to, love everyone. It was a church setting, spiritual setting, everything like this. So love was the basis of everything. And then that might be the spiritual perspective, but the community I was around, the people itself that I was around, didn't necessarily have that same thought with certain people. And I was one of these people because I was driven to learn more. I was driven to grow. I was driven to bring something to the world. And then I really started to feel I wasn't accepted here anymore because my viewpoints of that aspect were different. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, wait a second, why aren't I feeling the love that I felt at one time? And then I started to really feel that I was getting pushed out of that setting by the people that were there. I use quotes because I'm going to go deeper into it. And then I started to realize I wasn't supposed to be planted there because life had something. This was years ago. This was not who I, as you mentioned, you can look back at yourself and realize where you are. I was not in the right setting I was in, the right soil I was in to continue to grow this dream, this passion into a reality that I know it's meant to be. So I believe wholeheartedly God brought me around these people and the pain started to push me out the door because he wanted to pull me to the dream I told him I wanted in this life. And when I started to realize that, yes, it hurt letting go of the people that I thought were in my corner. It hurt because I thought they were there for me and they weren't. Understandably so, that's a factor of life. You take it, you let it go, it heals on its own. But to move then in step with what was put on my heart, that I believe God was pulling me towards, it's like someone hit the turbo button.
Yeah.
Because all these other things that were distracting me and pulled away, and that might be for you too, were finally fading away. So I could see clarity, everything that I wanted to bring to this world, and I saw the steps necessary. So life may bring you to a point where you are feeling pain and you have to let go and you have to let these things fade away. That's okay. To be able to grit your teeth, yes, at times, and realize this is for my benefit. That's a higher perspective. To elevate yourself in the self-improvement process, to realize that is incredible. To let the stuff go is a battle at times, but to do it brings you that much closer to what you want. So I say that in reiterating everything you said, and then kind of a final point before I pass off to you for a period on this entire message. The baby steps that we said, you were going over the routines and really moving forward and the baby steps that you set for yourself. I bring up my niece is turning 1 this weekend, so she's a baby. Of course, she hasn't learned to walk yet. She's crawling, she's moving, she's mobile. Phenomenal view. Shout out to Georgia Rose. Another Greek. But just in that sense, baby steps. You have to learn to crawl before you can even get up and walk. Before you can take a baby step, there's a process to get you there. So to you right now, even if this is the start of your journey, or maybe you're in the middle where things are a little bit slow and you got to pick the ball back up again. Yeah. Maybe you're close to the finish. It'll always come back to, if you're going to get mobile, you have to learn the process to become even mobile. It's like learning how to drive. The whole thing comes together in that concept of baby steps. You got to learn to be able to take the step first. And that's where everything we bring to you, confidence, your willpower, your discipline, the habits, the routines, everything that you can utilize to elevate yourself to a higher level in life. It's a process. Life is a journey for a reason because it's what you learn along the way in the journey. Take the lessons, run with them, learn with them, and see where your life goes. See where your passion comes alive. And that's the pursuit. But Peter, before we close everything off, what is the lasting message you want to leave people with a final period on this entire topic?
Honestly, I think everything that you said was really, really good. And the only thing that I'd like to add to it is, my cousin always says, must not worry, must only trust. You have to trust the process. You have to be willing to go with it. And, as things come to a lull, if you're in the middle of your passions and things are coming to a lull, as they always will, you take that time. That is the time to regroup and push even harder. And when you push even harder, the lull, when it comes back to a high, is higher than it was before, because you took that low moment and you did something with it, and you're preparing for that next high. So the lows are there for a reason, so that you can actually do so. But everything else, I think, we'll leave it with what you said. I think everything you said was perfect.
That's awesome. I think that's a great period you just brought to this entire message. But guys, we wanted to get together today to bring you this message to really help you elevate, to help you grow. Not in the sense of, hey, here's the coaching perspective, here's the teaching perspective. Put all that aside. We want you guys to grow for yourself, to pursue your passion. Take this message, run with it if you will, but don't become someone that just numbs the feeling of what's on my heart. No, I don't really want to do that. It's there for a reason. Like we said earlier, that will become an itch that you cannot scratch. Bring it alive. That's the pursuit of your passion. It's there for a reason, and it's on you to bring it into this world for a reason. Learning, growing, figuring out what that reason is, that's on your shoulders. Take this message and start the process and run with it. But Peter, I thank you so much for being here, brother. It's always a blast, our conversations. This will not be the last time you see Peter diving into one of these deeper topics with us on Once a Week. But before we close out, tell them, where can they find more on Traveling Teacher? Because you mentioned it a couple of times. If they have not seen the old video, guys, go check it out. But learn more by going to what? Yeah, so the website's at travelingteacher.com. There's Instagram, Facebook at A Traveling Teacher. If you want to see my own personal journey with the motorcycle and keeping up with the education as well, the Instagram handle, which I can give to you, is peter.panopoulos1, and that'll kind of give you the life before this whole educational journey, and you can see how things kind of wrapped up together to come up to all of this. And so, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. No, seriously, guys, that's all going to be in the credits, about to roll for you right now. But before we close this thing out, guys, please like this message on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up on below, because if that number goes up, we can share it to more people. And if at any point in this message, someone came into your mind, we say at the end of every video, that is a clear-cut sign that that person needs to hear this message too. Not for our benefit, for theirs. Share it to them and be the person that reaches a hand and helps them out. You might be a catalyst in their own journey to their passion just by sharing something as simple as this, and it creates a conversation between you two. Share it to someone and help them out. And if you have not already, please subscribe to Once a Week here on YouTube, guys, because every single week we're bringing you a new message to help you move forward, to learn, to grow, and become that best version of yourself. That's what we want to do. And if you're ever in need of a coach, guys, we have this up here, BillyGLifeCoaching.com. Guys, go check it out. If you want to become a client or just set up a free call with me and learn about how we can help you, set it up. I want to be in your corner. I want to help you. I want to take all this knowledge we brought today and bring it directly to you so we can help you grow. That's why we're here, pursuing our passions. But thank you so much for tuning in. Peter, I thank you for being here, brother. Awesome. Thanks for having me. Of course. It's always a blast. Blast. Have a good one, guys.
I've been around and doing it, but now it's my time to shine and start proving it. I'm losing it, I'm moving it. The city is where I'm made, Bostonian flow, I kick it back there. Yeah, I got game, got in a fan way. We the city of the champs, every sport we play. Spit wetter than the harbor, yeah, I'm flowing like the Charles. I be speeding on this beat, call it Turnpike Miles. Yeah, it's Boo signing up.